of all the terrible days of my lonely childhood.
Name's Mark. St. Paul's Elementary, class of '85.
The series and the book, they're based on your life experiences growing up in St. John's, Newfoundland, Canada, on a side of a road in an isolated house with a wacky family, including Malcolm McDowall.
Yeah.
So what was it like? Did it kind of turn you around digging up everything from back then? And was it unexpectedly emotional at points?
Oh yeah. I mean, well, writing the book is memory is a funny thing. You know, you go down, you think, maybe it's interesting. I guess we don't really think there's anything that unique or special about our own stories, because I was talking to my friends at Penguin Random House about the book initially, and I'd written a couple of different things, and they said, we want to hear more about growing up. Could you do a whole book about just growing up? And I thought, I don't think there's enough there. And then I started, and then one thing pops up and it'll lead to another. And it's like pulling this long rope, and where does it end? And next thing you know, I have this book, and that was great. And then my friend, Tim McAuliffe here, the great Tim McAuliffe, who's done such great TV work. He goes, this should be a TV show. That's what you're crazy. There's not enough here. And then we start tugging the rope again, you know? And so a lot of the memories come up, and you'll just tell a story, and then people go like, what? That happened? That can't be true, Ken. I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely. And some of the stuff in the show, I actually had to water down because the real version would be too ridiculous. and so, it was an incredible journey. And then of course, the great thing is you do this show all about old memories, and then you create new memories while you're doing the show. You know, I'm dressed as my father, sitting in the kitchen table of my old house, and I've got Malcolm McDowall and the great Benjamin Evan Ainsworth playing young me, and they're laughing and having a good time. And those memories I cherish as much as the ones I had growing up. So it's been the most exciting experience of my life by far.
Oh my goodness, how great. That gives me chills.
Why aren't you wearing sneakers?
They're orthopedics. I didn't think I needed orthopedic shoes, but I stand corrected.
Tim, what is he not telling us?
There's so many stories he's hiding. Yeah. It's really funny. No, the whole thing was just, I mean, really just fun to watch Mark find these things, like, you know, talking, like thinking about sort of past memories, and then remembering something, and then adding that to the script and that sort of thing. So I think, to me, it was just fun watching Mark sort of get to sort of relive this. And then even like we were talking about earlier, Mark actually on the set closed his eyes once and walked around and could do it the same way he did it back in his home, because we rebuilt the set in a way that was so similar to the actual.
Yeah, without bumping into anything. My first time sitting there, it was strange because my house was torn down in the 90s. And I'm sitting there in where my dad's chair was, in basically the same chair. And I thought, and it's all like those old houses where they have, you know, just arches and no doors, and it's all a big circle. So I was like, I wonder. So I got up and I walked out, past where the TV was, into the hallway, back in through the kitchen, past the kitchen table, into the little dining room, and back around to the chair. And I didn't bump into anything.
I'm not a runner. I'm more of a stroller.
Were you bullied?
How'd you ever guess?
And let's talk about those fox brats. Were they there? Who were they? What was their name?
Well, that's a mixture of a lot of different bullies, right? And at the time you think they're bullies, and then at a certain time getting to know people, you realize there's more to the story. There's something that's making them lash out. They're upset about something. They're being bullied themselves at home or what have you. As you get older, you look back and you go, okay, well, there's more to the story here. And you kind of feel bad for them. So, so it's interesting then to kind of like, you know, people I went to school with will be like, oh, was it this person? Was it that person? Was it? But my best friend in the show is Richie Perez, who's still a very close friend of mine to this day, because Richie was the only person of color at our school. He's a Filipino Canadian. So I had to go, okay, I'm doing a show. It's going to make it you. You cool with that? He was right on board. So it's been great for him he got to come to set one day in a scene with Malcolm McDowall and play his uncle, and his daughters got to come in there and recreate these backyard pig roasts they used to have as kids. And so that was lovely to see, you know, and so it's great that way. And one of the teachers at my school, Mr. Bashaw, he got to play somebody at the wake. So in a wake scene. So I'm getting to pepper real people throughout the show. And my brother got to hang out with the person who was playing him.
Tim, did you get some documentary footage of all this happening? This is a documentary.
And I do have really great footage. I should send this to you because Mark took me through the rubble of the actual home that he lived at. And it still has the driveway and it's still next to VOCM, which is now, I'm sure, grown in size considerably.
Yeah.
And we found his mom's old rose bushes that were still there, even amidst all the rubble and that sort of thing.
Yeah, they're grown wild now. There's so many of them. I actually took a clipping and I planted one in my backyard.
That's great. Wow, what an experience. Mark, how old were you when you realized that your words had power and that you could make a living?
When I was 15 years old, I played hooky and left school. We rented the LSPU Hall, the Longshoremen's Protective Union Hall in St. John's, Newfoundland. Got a 60-40 split on the door. Myself and 3 friends did a sketch comedy show at 11 o'clock at night.
At 15?
Yeah, lying to our parents. And then the kind of people who would go out to see a bunch of 15-year-olds at 11 o'clock at night in a longshoremen's union are not a great audience. There was a lot, they served beer there, and there was a lot of foreign sailors, a couple of Russian guys there drinking beer, and you're up there like, I'm going to do a show. And they're like, where are the girls? So that was fun. So from that point though, like once you get that, like we charge money and they're here to see, we did a show. And yeah, that was it for me, I think. And that was the first time I'd written something and performed it. And that's always been my whole jam, is writing stuff and performing it. And I've never wanted to go off and try and be an American movie star or something like that. I've always wanted to write stories that are pretty specific about the place. It's Canadian, Newfoundland, Labrador, that kind of thing, and tell them. And that's something we've been able to do, and so lucky to have, Tim is a bona fide big time American TV writer producer, worked on The Office and Fallon and Last Man on Earth and all these things. And I'm like, do you want to come back to Canada and to Newfoundland and to play dress up in my old house? And he's like, yeah, sure. So this is great.
Yay,
I can
Tim.
just spit stuff out. He can polish it all and make it real show. It's great.
Just fantastic. I have no idea how much time I have left. I feel I've talked the whole afternoon. Honestly, it's quite emotional. How the heck did Malcolm McDowall get in the show? Tim?
We had been looking to try to achieve a tone for the show that was similar to a lot of British shows that Mark and I really like, Dairy Girls, and even like the British Office and Alan Partridge, and sort of a very dry sensibility. And we knew that we wanted to open the doors to sort of people who had worked in that world and that sort of thing. So we hired some UK casting agents, and they found us Benjamin, and then they suggested Malcolm. And so they sent the book over to Malcolm, and I think he read it in a day. And then we had a Zoom with him. And the second we talked to him, it was clear he loved the book, but also he had the sensibility. He understood the world in a way that we were going to achieve when we actually went to the UK to try to find people as well. So it was really kind of magical to see that happen. And then you were saying it was a little bit emotional, or that's all Malcolm. And he'd say to us, we'd be sitting in this hollowed out, empty Home Depot in like north of St. John's, Newfoundland, and cold, and just sitting there, sort of just hanging out. And he'd go, I think I'm gonna cry on this take, or something like that. And then he'd go and just add this level of dimension that we just could not have ever imagined, in our basic writing and that sort of thing. So
my advice to anybody who wants to make a show is write something, and then find the best child actor of their generation and the best 80-year-old actor of his generation, and then let them read it, and it will seem so much better than anything. So it's like, just get Malcolm McDowall to do it. But he would do these things, and the whole crew would start applauding after a take, and he would do something amazing. And then it's like, I've never seen anything like it, especially with Benjamin and Malcolm together. You have a 12-year-old guy and an 80-year-old guy, and they're just so good. and they just do this thing, and it becomes real. It's happening, and it's remarkable to see. I've never seen it. It's like watching a magic trick, you know, how good they can be.
Yeah.
And so we just had to get out of the way.
And then we can take credit for it after, which is great.
It's
Right.
fantastic.
Yay.
Of all the terrible days of my lonely childhood,
Name's Mark. St. Paul's Elementary, class of '85.
the first day of junior high was the worst.
Why aren't you wearing sneakers?
They're orthopedics. I didn't think I needed orthopedic shoes, but I stand corrected. I'm not a runner. I'm more of a stroller.
Were you bullied?
How'd you ever guess?